Recap of parts 1 and 2 that you can both find linked to in this video's YouTube video description area. The problem of evil argument is as follows. If God is all-knowing, that God would know about any actual evil and suffering that exist and any potential evil and suffering that could exist. If on top of that, God is also all-loving, then God would want to stop and prevent such evil and suffering. And if on top of all that, God is all-powerful, then God would be able to stop and prevent such evil and suffering. Therefore, since evil and suffering exist, we can know conclusively that no God with all three of these qualities can possibly exist. J. Warner Wallace, however, has written an article titled The Problem with Answering the Problem of Evil, where he presents several arguments known as theodicies that attempt to poke holes in this argument by giving reasons why evil can exist in a universe overseen by a God with those three qualities. As he claims that these theodicies are meant to work cumulatively rather than individually, I am careful not to write any theodicy off until I have shown that not only it fails to be persuasive on its own, but does not even make probabilistic progress needed in order to be of use in cumulative proof. And so far, I have shown not only that every argument he has put forth so far has been worthless, even by this standard, I have found that he is actually, so far at least, repeating the same three worthless arguments over and over and just presenting them as additional ones. These worthless arguments that I have gleaned out of his repetitions so far are as follows. Number 1, the free will excuse, where evil is excused as necessary for free will to work, ignoring the fact that a tri-omni God, if such a God exists, would be the one to have authored the matrix of our free will in the first place. Number 2 is the greater good excuse, where evil and suffering are excused as necessary for a greater good, ignoring the fact that a tri-omni God should be able to achieve that greater good without the need for such evil and suffering. And number 3 is a hybrid of the first two that I call the character building excuse. But are there any theodicies in Wallace's list that are not repetitions of any of these three excuses? We will explore that question in just a moment. Hello, Internet. This is Sophia, the Red Angel, doing my best on this channel to produce content that is worth your time to watch and listen to. Today, I bring you the conclusion of my three-part response to J. Walter Wallace's article in which he claims to show that the problem of evil proof does not actually disprove the existence of a tri-omni God such as the one claimed by Christians. And so far, Wallace seems to be utterly failing to do so. If he has any arguments that are worth a hoot, that he has not had the decency to put them at or near the beginning of his list. Based on this, I've been able to call out his Gish Gallop. But I've not gotten to the end of his list yet. So what is his next theodicy? He titles it, The Relationship Between Immoral Christian Behavior and a Moral God. What the frel? I guess that the only way that I will know what the frel he means is to read his description. He says,
Our theodicy must be prepared to defend the existence of the Christian God in light of the sometimes immoral behavior of Christians.
But actually, If he is trying to refute the problem of evil proof of the tri-omni God's non-existence, then it is not just the reprehensible behavior of Christians that he needs to answer for. It is anyone's reprehensible behavior. And why the hell is Christians in quotes, by the way? If they are professing Christian doctrine, are they not Christians? Is this guy preparing to set up a no true Scotsman argument? Granted, exploring that question would be going off topic, because since the problem of evil does not care whether the perpetrators of horrific acts are Christians or not at all, it certainly does not care whether or not those professing to be Christians are true Christians. Nonetheless, I still have to point out the peculiarity of him putting Christians in quotes. Anywho, Wallace says,
while history may include examples of Christian groups committing evil upon those with whom they disagreed, a fair examination will also reveal they were not alone in this sort of behavior. Groups holding virtually every worldview, from theists to atheists, have been mutually guilty of evil behavior.
Well, yes, but the problem of evil proof does not focus on the acts of Christians, nor the followers of any other particular religion, or even the acts of just religious people in general. Every reprehensible deed that has ever been done by anyone is equally relevant to the problem of evil. In a universe overseen by an all-loving, all-powerful, and all-knowing God, the atrocities committed by Stalin and the KGB would be just as impossible as those of the Spanish Inquisition and the Family Research Council. And as such, the fact that they nonetheless occurred is just as solid proof that this tri-omni God does not exist.
The common denominator in these violent human groups was not worldview. It was the presence of humans.
Yes, humans who, if the tri-omni God does in fact exist, are his creations and of his design. So if it is in their nature to commit atrocities, then, if God exists, he would be the one who put that in their nature. A being who is all-knowing, all-loving, and all-powerful would have designed us without such defect. But what causes me to conclude that Wallace is not even addressing the problem of evil at all in this theodicy is the following.
The question is not which group is more violent, but which worldview most authorizes and accommodates this violence.
Actually, neither of these is the question. The question is, which worldview describes the universe in a way that is not proven to be false by the mere fact that these atrocities occur to begin with? And as I said, whether we are talking about the atrocities of Stalin or the Spanish Inquisition or of the Traditional Values Coalition or of ISIS, any religion that speaks of an all-loving, all-knowing, all-powerful God fails this test. Anyway, the next theodicy on the list is titled The Relationship Between Our Understanding and God's Actions. I am going to have to read all of it, but to save your time, I will only share with you the one part that is not a repetition of the 3 excuses we have seen thus far, and all I found along those lines is as follows.
If there is a God, all of creation is his handiwork. He has the right to create and destroy what is his, even when this destruction may seem unfair to the artwork itself.
Seriously? An all-loving God would be so petty as to bicker about him having the right to inflict you with violence pestilence, famine, and premature death? Whether he has the right to torment you or not, if he is all-loving, he would not want to do anything of the sort. And once again, if on top of that he is all-powerful and all-knowing, there is no reason why he would need to have such trauma inflicted on anyone. But hey, having debunked this, I can now at least add a fourth item to the list of excuses that can be gleaned from his repetitious theodicies. I will call this one the Creator's entitlement excuse. But it too is completely worthless. It does not even make the probabilistic progress that it would need in order to be useful in cumulative proof. It is just plain bunk. I might add, the rebuttal that I just gave to the Creator's entitlement excuse is not the only one out there. It is merely the one that I found to be the most pertinent to the problem of evil. Anywho, the next theodicy, titled The Relationship Between Evil and Eternity, is just another repetition of the greater good excuse. So this finally brings us to the last theodicy on Wallace's list, which he titles The Nature of Objective Evil and the Existence of God. This theodicy is Wallace inserting a very old cop-out given by theists, where they say that without a God, there can be no such thing as objective evil or objective good. This argument is very slick, but there have been numerous videos given by numerous YouTubers, myself included, on why this argument falls flat on its face. Some time ago, I made a video titled Turek Thinks Evil Proves God, in which I debunked that argument at greater length. If you want to see it, I will link to it in this video's YouTube video description area. But for now, I will focus on how it fails to make a dent in the problem of evil. This argument attempts to prove that nothing can be defined as evil in a universe without God. But whether it succeeds or not, to make a dent in the problem of evil, it has to explain how evil can exist in a universe that has a triomni God. This theodicy does not even attempt to answer that one, not to mention that it does not attempt to show how the triomni God's existence is compatible with suffering, and there is no way around the fact that suffering is something that can be objectively defined with or without a God. So once again, this theodicy makes no progress at all toward refuting the problem of evil. So, we have finally reached the end of Wallace's long list of theodicies. And what does Wallace have? Just a whole giant heap of absolutely nothing. Every single theodicy he has offered is completely worthless, and all of them put together are just as unpersuasive as they are individually. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this three-part presentation. Please like, subscribe, comment, ring the bell, check out some of the other videos on this channel, and until next time, see ya!